My name is Marlene. I'm 57, and until recently, I believed two things with my whole heart. Sanli takes care of family. My sister would never lie to me. I was wrong on both counts. Our mother, Lillian, was always the strong one. Raised us alone after Dad walked out. Worked 2 jobs, baked on Sundays, ironed her blouses, even in her 70s. She was sharp, proud, and above all else, independent. But time catches us all. When her knees began to fail, when the stairs in her house became mountains, and when she forgot where she'd put her own keys, we knew something had to change. I lived 4 states away, a teaching job I couldn't just leave, divorced, renting a small apartment. My sister, Teresa, still lived in our hometown. She'd never moved out. Still slept in her childhood room. Still ate toast the way Mom made it. Still clipped coupons from the same local paper. When we talked about Mom needing help, I'll take care of her. She's fine here with me. You don't need to worry. And I didn't. Not like I should have. I sent money every month. Groceries, new medical alert devices, flowers for Mom's birthday. I called on Sundays. Sometimes Mom answered, sometimes Teresa. They always said the same thing. She's okay. Just tired today. Nothing to worry about. And I believed them, because family doesn't lie, right? The last time I saw Mom alive was 2 years ago. Christmas. She was thinner, quieter, but her eyes still sparkled when she saw me. She grabbed my hands with surprising strength and whispered, "Don't let go of what's yours." I thought she was confused, maybe talking about ornaments or old heirlooms. But now I wonder if she knew, if she was trying to tell me what Teresa wouldn't. Mom died in May. Heart failure, the doctor said. Peaceful, in her sleep. Teresa called me after it happened, her voice dry, emotionless. I offered to fly out immediately. She told me there's no need. I handled everything. The funeral had already happened, without me. A private service, just family, she said. Except I was family. I am family. She mailed me a small box. Inside, a copy of the obituary, a locket, and a note that said, "Mom would have wanted you to have this. T." I cried for days, not just for Mom, but for the feeling that I'd been erased. But grief does strange things to the brain. It numbs. It delays questions you should be asking. Like, where was Mom buried? What happened to the house? Did Mom leave a will? 2 months later, I got the answer to that last question. But I didn't hear it from Teresa. I heard it from a friend of Mom's, Mrs. Daly, the librarian. She sent me an email. "Your mother always said you girls would split things equally. I hope that's what happened." I froze. Split what? That night I called Teresa. She let it ring and ring and ring. When she finally answered, her voice was clipped. "Marlene, it's late. I'm tired." I didn't wait. "Did Mom leave a will?" A long silence. Then, "Yes." My chest tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it was handled. She left everything to me. You were out of state. You couldn't take care of her. Just like that, like a knife, slid in quietly between the ribs. I didn't shout, didn't cry. I just hung up and stared at the wall until sunrise. Because I didn't care about the money or the house. I cared that my mother trusted someone to do the right thing, and that trust was buried with her. But I wasn't going to let the truth stay buried. Not this time. Not anymore. After that call, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the fan blades spinning slow and steady above me, like the days I'd let pass without asking questions. I had believed Teresa for years. Now, everything felt like a lie, told through smiles and Sunday phone calls. The next morning, I started making calls. Not to Teresa, to lawyers. I didn't have much. Some savings, a tired Honda, and a small retirement fund that looked more like a suggestion than a future. But I wasn't after revenge. I was after truth. The first lawyer I spoke to said this: if there was a will, it should have gone through probate. If your mother had assets, like a house, savings, insurance, and your name wasn't on them, you should have been notified. I told him I hadn't been. He paused. That's irregular. He asked me to send him anything I had. All I had was the obituary, the locket, and that single sentence from Teresa. She left everything to me. 2 days later, the lawyer called back. Your mother's house was transferred into your sister's name 6 weeks before she died. Transferred how? I asked. Power of attorney. Your mother signed over control. No public record of a will yet. But it might not matter if the assets were already moved. I couldn't breathe. My mother, who once refused to let us borrow her car without insurance coverage, who read every label twice, had given up her entire estate a month and a half before her death? And Teresa hadn't told me? I called Teresa again. She answered on the second ring, like she'd been expecting it. What now, Marlene? Power of attorney? When did that happen? A pause, then flatly. Last spring. Mom wanted it that way. I was here. You weren't. She didn't tell me because she didn't want to upset you. You're sensitive. That word, sensitive. She used it when we were kids, when I cried after Dad left, when I asked why Mom never remarried, when I got panic attacks in college. It was never sympathy. It was always dismissal. I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. Instead, I booked a flight. 3 days later, I stood in front of our childhood home. It hadn't changed much. The same chipped blue shutters, the same cracked front step. But the energy was different. Still, empty, cold, like all the warmth had been boxed up and carried away with Mom. Teresa didn't answer when I rang the bell, but the door opened. She looked smaller than I remembered, paler. Her hair pulled into a tight bun, no makeup, no smile. You shouldn't have come. I'm not here for a fight, I said. I'm here for the truth. She let me in, reluctantly. The house smelled like furniture polish and lemon disinfectant. No trace of our mother's perfume. No family photos left on the walls. Like she was trying to erase everything that didn't belong to her. I asked her to see the will. She said there was none, just the power of attorney. Everything was legal, she said. But her voice quivered. Later, when she went to the kitchen to make tea, I wandered, habit mostly, and then I saw it. Mom's old desk in the back room, still locked. Same brass handle, same sticky drawer. A small brass key used to hang behind the door frame in the kitchen. I checked, it was still there. I unlocked the drawer. Inside were envelopes, photos, letters, and a folder labeled, "To be opened after my death, for Marlene and Teresa." I froze. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. At the top was a handwritten note. "My girls, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I want you to know this was never about fairness. It was about love and about who needed what. But no one was meant to be left out. Please, whatever you find in here, remember, you were both my everything." Behind the letter, a copy of a will, signed, notarized, 6 months before her death, and my name was on it. My name was there. Black ink, clear letters, no confusion. The will was signed, witnessed, and notarized, dated 6 months before Mom passed. And it was fair, painfully fair. She split everything. The house, the savings, the antique jewelry, even the family photo albums. But it wasn't about the things. It was about what she said in the letter attached. "Teresa, I know you've done so much for me, more than anyone ever asked you to. But this isn't a reward. This is a legacy. Marlene, I know you were far away, but you never left my heart. You brought me peace in your words, your Sunday calls, your belief in me. You both gave me different kinds of love. So I give back what I can, evenly, truly, with gratitude." It didn't sound like a confused old woman. It sounded like Mom. The Mom I knew. Measured, wise, fair. I was still holding the folder when Teresa returned with tea. She froze. Her eyes dropped to the paper in my hands. She didn't say a word. I placed the will gently on the table between us. "You said there wasn't one." She didn't sit, didn't blink, just whispered, "I thought it would be easier that way." I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor like a scream. "Easier for who?" She looked older than I'd ever seen her. Not just tired, defeated. "You weren't here," she muttered. "You didn't see the days she forgot her name. You didn't clean up after her when she fell. You didn't stay up nights begging her to eat." Her voice cracked. "I carried everything, while you called once a week and sent flowers. I should have yelled, should have thrown something. But instead, I sat back down, because beneath the anger, I heard the truth. Not justification, but the root of the lie. Teresa had been alone. And somewhere along the line, she convinced herself that being there meant owning the story, even if it meant burying our mother's last words. You should have told me, I said quietly. Tears welled in her eyes. I hated you for not being here. I hated you for locking me out. Silence, heavy and old, like a second funeral. I left that night without another word, the folder pressed to my chest like a shield. Back in my hotel, I stared at the ceiling again. Same fan, same slow spin. But everything had changed, because now I had a choice. Not about what I deserved, but about what I was going to do. I didn't want the house, didn't want to sue, didn't want to take Teresa to court, but I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted Mom's last words to matter. I met with the lawyer again. He confirmed the will was valid. It had never been filed. It could still be enforced. But he asked me something. Do you want a courtroom battle, or do you want closure? And I didn't know the answer. Not yet. Because closure, like grief, is never clean. And truth, no matter how quiet, echoes in every room it was hidden from. I stayed in that hotel for 2 more nights, not because I needed rest, but because I didn't want to go home carrying silence again. I reread the will at least 20 times, not looking for legal strength, looking for emotional clarity, for my mother's voice in between the lines. Every word felt like her, measured, loving, sharp when needed. She wasn't confused. She wasn't pressured. She was deliberate. And Teresa had erased that. I called the lawyer one last time. Can we file it, even now? Yes, he said. It will open probate. It'll be messy, but it will make your mother's voice heard, officially. I hung up and sat quietly by the window, watching a couple cross the parking lot with grocery bags and quiet laughter. And I thought, maybe that's all life is. A series of small choices that echo louder than we think. The next morning, I drove back to the house. Teresa didn't expect me. She opened the door in a bathrobe, her eyes swollen. We didn't exchange greetings. I stepped inside and handed her a copy of the will. I'm filing it. She looked down, didn't argue, didn't plead, just nodded. Okay. I waited for the storm, for screaming, threats, guilt, but it didn't come. Instead, she walked into the kitchen, made coffee, poured 2 cups, and for the first time since Mom died, we sat together without roles, just as sisters. She asked me not to tell you. Teresa said quietly. When she got worse, she told me she didn't want to cause a fight, said you were too far, and it would just make things harder. But she wrote the will after she got worse, I replied. She chose to include me anyway. Teresa nodded. I know. She didn't try to defend herself further. She didn't need to, because this wasn't about courtrooms anymore. It was about 2 daughters standing in the shadow of the same woman and realizing they'd both failed her in different way. We didn't resolve everything that morning. We barely spoke the rest of the visit, but I left with her signature on the probate acknowledgement. No objections, just ink on paper that finally let Mom's voice be official. Back home, I filed the will. The court moved slowly. Months passed. Forms, filings, reviews. But I didn't mind, because every page filed was a restoration of memory, of truth, of voice. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want the house. I just wanted to know that love didn't disappear just because someone else tried to own it. And in the end, I didn't just recover my share. I recovered my mother's intention. And for me, that was everything. After the court accepted the will, things changed quietly. No drama, no police, no breaking down the door. Just small letters from the probate office, mailed in pale envelopes marked with black ink and bureaucracy. It wasn't about money. It was about air returning to rooms I hadn't entered in years. One day in February, I got a call from Teresa. First one since the day she signed. "I've been going through Mom's things," she said. "There's a box here. I think it's yours." Her voice wasn't defensive or sweet, just flat, exhausted, but real. I didn't answer immediately. She continued. "It had your name written inside, in her handwriting." Something in my chest softened. Despite everything, despite betrayal, there was still this, a thread that connected us through our mother's hands. The box arrived by mail, wrapped in brown paper, taped gently. Inside were old photographs, letters I'd written to Mom from college, a pair of pearl earrings I hadn't seen since high school, and a note, short in Teresa's handwriting. She saved it all. "I didn't know until now. I'm sorry." I sat on the floor for a long time, surrounded by pieces of my younger self. Ticket stubs, postcards, a pressed flower in wax paper. I didn't cry. I just existed in the silence between forgiveness and grief. A week later, Teresa called again. "There's something else." "What?" "I want to sign the house over to both of us. I can't keep it. It doesn't feel like mine anymore." I was stunned. "Are you sure?" "I wasn't at first, but now, yeah, I think it should be ours, the way she wanted." We met again that spring. Neutral ground, the lawyer's office. The signature was fast. The decision behind it had taken a lifetime. No speeches, no tears, just two women trying to stitch something back together with old thread and newer hands. Afterwards, we walked outside. Cherry blossoms were blooming, pink petals falling like gentle mistakes. She turned to me. I thought I was protecting her, and in a way, maybe I was. But I wasn't protecting you. "No," I said softly. "You weren't." We stood in silence. And for once, it wasn't bitter, just honest, like air after rain. That summer, we opened the house together. Not to sell, not to renovate, just to walk through it. Room after we reopened the house, something inside me shifted. I stopped calling it Mom's place. I started calling it home. even though I hadn't lived there in over 30 years, even though my mailing address was still 4 states away. It wasn't the walls or furniture. It was the garden. Mom's garden had been wild, beautiful, and unapologetically stubborn, just like her. But in the years after she got sick, it had withered. Overgrown hedges, dried flower beds, rust on the gate. Still, beneath the neglect, I saw her hands, in the pattern of the stones, in the shape of the climbing roses, in the silence between the weeds. One weekend, I drove out alone. Teresa wasn't ready to return. I didn't press. I brought gloves, tools, and a radio. And for the first time since she passed, I dug my hands into her soil. There's something ancient about working in a garden where someone you loved once bled their knees for beauty. You don't plant new flowers. You resurrect old ones. You don't rip out the wildness. You make room for it. As I cleared the path near the back, I found something buried, a tin box. Inside, packets of seeds, faded, dated, labeled in her handwriting. Next spring for Marlene. Pink zinnias, tall cosmos, white daisies. I sat back in the dirt and sobbed, not loud, not ugly, just steady, like the watering of something broken. Because even in dying, she had thought about life continuing. Even in silence, she had planted something for me. That night, I slept in the old bedroom, windows open, crickets buzzing like lullabies from my childhood. And I dreamed of her. She was kneeling beside me in the garden, hands dirty, face calm. "You found it," she said. I nodded. She smiled, and then she said something that stayed with me, even after I woke up. "Forgive the roots. They just wanted to hold on." The next morning, I called Teresa. "Come plant with me next weekend?" A pause, then quiet. "I'd like that." We didn't speak much that weekend, but we didn't need to. Sometimes healing doesn't come in words. It comes in the sharing of space, the hum of bees, the ache of your back after digging out weeds together. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I was not just visiting our mother's memory. I was living it, growing something from it, letting it bloom again. After that summer, I didn't return to my apartment. I meant to. I told myself it was just for a few days, maybe a week, to tend the garden. But the weeks turned into months, and my heart never packed its bags. I resigned from my teaching job. The email was short. No drama. Just, "Thank you. It's time for something else." I didn't know what something else was. I just knew that whatever it was, it started here, in this old house, in this overgrown yard, in the memory of the woman who made me and the woman who betrayed me, then tried to mend it. One day, while sorting through a closet, I found Mom's journals, stacked neatly, each one labeled by year. I sat for hours reading them, not to invade her privacy, to remember her voice, to understand her loneliness, her humor, her fear, her quiet faith in us, even when we were fractured. And something started to form in me. Not a plan, a pull, a sense that I wasn't meant to move on. I was meant to carry forward. I started writing, not a novel, not a memoir, just fragments, thoughts, stories of mothers and daughters, of buried wills and unspoken hopes, of things that bloom after frost. I didn't know if anyone would read it. I just knew I needed to tell it. I told Teresa. She smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in years. "You always had a way with words," she said. "And you always had a way with silence," I replied. We both laughed. Soft, tired, real. Fall came, leaves like fire and copper. Teresa and I began a Sunday ritual. Coffee on the porch, sometimes with words, sometimes just with wind. We weren't best friends, not even always comfortable, but we were present, and that, after everything, was a kind of miracle. One chilly morning, she handed me a worn envelope. "I found this taped under Mom's bed frame," she said. "It's yours." Inside, a photo of Mom, me, and Teresa on a bench. No date, no writing, but the memory came back instantly. It was a Tuesday. We had gone out for sandwiches. Mom was wearing those ridiculous sunglasses. Teresa had mustard on her shirt. I was mid-laugh. It was the last day we ever spent together. All three of us, with no tension. Just women. Just family. I framed the photo, put it in the hallway, next to the garden window, where the morning sun could touch it. Some days I still feel angry, still remember the box, the call, the betrayal. But most days now, I feel something else. Peace, not because it didn't hurt, but because I let the hurt become something new. Not bitterness, but roots. A year has passed. The seasons have circled, each one layering over the last like rings in an old tree. And I'm still here. Not because I couldn't leave, but because I finally chose to stay. The house is no longer haunted by silence. It breathes again, with the creak of old floors, the smell of black coffee and earth, and the scratch of my pen across paper each morning. I finished the book. Not a bestseller, not viral, but it exists. Printed, bound, shared with quiet readers who write back things like, "This made me call my sister after 10 years. I didn't know I needed this until I read it." And I think maybe Mom knew. Maybe that's why she split things the way she did. Not just for fairness, but for healing. Not just for ownership, but for purpose. Teresa comes by every Friday now. We don't talk about the will anymore. We don't need to. The garden is full again. Every spring flower opens like a memory we're no longer afraid to hold. Sometimes, when the wind moves just right, I swear I hear her. Not a ghost, a presence. In the brush of petals, the rustle of leaves, the rhythm of two sisters watering what once was broken. I've learned that not all betrayals are final, that people fail us, not because they don't love us, but because they're scared of what fairness might take away. And sometimes, when you uncover the truth, you uncover something, but also grace. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but today I walk through the hallway, past the photo on the wall, past the folded note I framed that simply says, "You were both my everything." And I believe her, at last, because what remains is not the will, not the documents, not the house, but the garden we rebuilt together, and the silence we learned how to fill with something true.